You open your eyes to the cool summer light of a July morning in 1839. The air is gentle, still carrying the night's dew, and the world is quiet in your small hometown of Richford, New York. You are the first child of a struggling farming family, a boy named John Davison Rockefeller, though the way to that name is nothing like what it will one day become. Your father, William, is unlike most men you know. He is tall, confident, and charming, with a grin of a man who could talk his way into or out of anything. The neighbors call him Devil Bill. They say it with half amusement, half warning. You will come to understand why. He calls himself a botanic physician, a seller of herbal cures, but you will learn soon enough that his bottles hold more promise than medicine. His remedies are mostly harmless, sometimes useless, and always overpriced. He has the quick mind of a trader, the nerve of a gambler, and the restlessness of a man who cannot sit still. Your mother, Eliza, is his opposite, steady, frugal, devout, a Baptist woman whose faith runs deeper than her own needs. She keeps the home together when your father vanishes for weeks, sometimes months, chasing schemes or playing doctor in distant towns. She knows how to make bread stretch, how to patch worn clothes until they cannot take another stitch, and how to keep her children fed even when there's almost nothing left. The house you live in is small, drafty in winter, hot in summer. Your bed is narrow, your blanket thin. Yet you are not without moments of surprise, for when your father returns from his travels, he does so in style. One week you might be hungry, wearing the same tattered shirt for the third day in a row, and the next, your father steps off a fine carriage, bringing boxes of sweets, toys, and new clothes, as though you were royalty. You do not know it yet, but this contrast between want and abundance, between stability and sudden windfall, will shape you. You will come to value money with a near-religious intensity, guarding it, multiplying it, bending it to your will. Your childhood is not one of leisure. You work the farm before you are old enough to understand the meaning of work. At dawn, the fields are damp and the soil clings to your boots. Your small hands blister on the handle of the plow. Yet, with each season, your body grows stronger, your mind sharper. You learn the rhythm of tasks, the patience to finish them well. One day, you wander into the woods and find a nest of wild turkey eggs. You take them home, hatch them, and raise the chicks until they are grown. You sell a few for profit, keep some for eggs, and realize you can make more by repeating the cycle. It is a small venture, but in your young heart, it feels like a discovery that effort, when paired with thought, can create wealth. By the time you are 10, you have more responsibilities than many grown men. You help manage the household when your father is away. You watch over your younger siblings, Lucy, William Jr., Marianne, and the twins, Frank and Francis. You learn to keep accounts, to count every coin, to make decisions with what little the family has. Your mother trusts you, and you feel the quiet pride of being relied upon. But shadows pass over these early years. Your father's absences grow longer, his returns less frequent. One day, a scandal breaks, an accusation against him for terrible crime. The family's name is whispered about in low tones. Whether true or not, the damage is done. You move away, searching for a new beginning. In time, you will learn an even darker truth. Your father, under the name Dr. William Livingston, has married another woman in Canada, living a second life, building a second family. This betrayal settles into you like a stone at the bottom of a well. You never speak of it in public. In time, you will tell people your mother is a widow, and you will rarely utter your father's name. You continue your schooling as best you can while working. But as the years pass, your mother's needs grow greater, the mouths to feed more numerous. College, once a dream, becomes impossible. You decide to leave school before graduation, choosing the surety of work over the uncertainty of further education. And so, at 16, you step into the bustling streets of Cleveland, a list of companies in your hand. Railroads, banks, wholesalers, any that might take you. Day after day, you knock on doors, introduce yourself, and are turned away. You are too young, they say. You lack experience. 6 weeks pass before a small firm, Hewitt and Tuttle, give you a chance as an assistant bookkeeper. You take the position without asking the wage. You are simply grateful for the opportunity. Later, you will learn it pays just 50 cents a day, but to you, it is a beginning. You arrive early, you stay late, and you pore over every invoice, every ledger entry, until you understand the flow of money like the pulse in your own veins. You open the company safe one afternoon just to hold a $4,000 note in your hands, marveling at the weight of its promise. You begin a quiet ritual each morning. I'm bound to be rich. You repeat it not as a wish, but as a certainty. When the year ends, you have earned enough for independence. You begin giving 10% of your wages to charity, to churches, to those in need, as your mother taught you. But you also save. You watch. You plan. The years at Hewitt and Tuttle give you more than wages. They give you confidence. And as you sense the shifting winds of the world beyond your desk, the rising hum of industry, the hungry demand for opportunity, you feel it deep inside. You will not remain an employee for long. Your path will not be straight. It will win through partnerships, gambles, moments of fear and moments of triumph. It will lead to fortunes so vast it will be spoken of for generations, and to shadows that will follow you just as far. But here, in your small desk in Cleveland, in the quiet of the early morning before the office days, you are simply a boy with a ledger, a steady hand, and a belief, stronger than anything your family has ever owned, that your life is destined for more. It is the summer of 1858, and the air in Cleveland is thick with the scent of grain and sawdust, the clatter of horse hooves on stone streets, and the echo of voices calling prices across crowded markets. You are 19 now, lean from long days, with the quiet confidence of someone who understands the rhythm of work. Your time at Hewitt and Tuttle has given you the discipline to account for every cent, to trust the numbers even when instinct wavers. You have begun to trade in commodities on your own account, grain, fish, meat, beans, anything that moves quickly from seller to buyer. The profits are modest, but each transaction teaches you more about the machinery of commerce, how to read the market, how to spot weakness in a deal, how to press to the smallest advantage without losing the other man's respect. It is in these years that you meet Maurice Clark, an Englishman older than you, sharp and cautious where you are deliberate and steady. Together, you form a partnership, Clark and Rockefeller, pooling $4,000 to open a trading business. Half of your contribution is borrowed from your father at 10% interest, a debt you will carry in your mind like a stone until it is paid. The work is relentless. You rise before dawn, travel by wagon and rail, seek out buyers in distant towns. Some days, you are met with a handshake and a signed contract. Others, with a curt refusal and an empty stomach on the road home. But the business grows. You and Clark learn to move quickly when prices shift, to buy when others hesitate, to sell when the market grows greedy. The profits in your second year are more than you dared imagine at the start. $17,000. A small fortune to a young man, but you keep your satisfaction quiet. It is not wealth you are chasing now, but position, a place from which greater things can be reached. In these years, America itself seems restless, moving towards something vast and uncertain. The war between North and South edges closer, the debates over slavery sharpening. You are an abolitionist in principle, shaped by your church, by the sermons your mother loved, by your own belief that work and reward should belong to all men. But you also have a family to feed, and the thought of leaving them without your earnings weighs more heavily than the call to join the fight. When war comes in 1861, you pay the fee for a substitute to take your place in the Union Army. It is not a decision you make lightly, and yet you know it is a practical one. Your work, your trade, your growing connections, these are your weapons. Through them, you will support the cause in other ways. The war shifts the economy. With the South cut off, demand for goods in the North soars, and your business swells in the tide. But it is in the shadow of this conflict that you encounter the opportunity that will change your life forever. In Pennsylvania, a new kind of fortune is being pulled from the ground. Thick and dark, it seeps from wells drilled not for water, but for something else, crude oil. For generations, whale oil has lit America's lamps, but the hunt for whales is costly, dangerous, and increasingly scarce. This oil, when refined into kerosene, burns brighter, cleaner, and far cheaper. One day, a man named Samuel Andrews comes to you and Clark. He is a chemist, skilled in refining crude into kerosene of remarkable clarity using a secret method with sulfuric acid. His refinery is small, but his ambitions are large. He seeks partners. You study his figures, his samples, his projections. It is clear to you that this is more than another passing trade. This is an industry in its infancy, chaotic, risky, but with a kind of potential that will not wait for the cautious. Clark is uncertain. You are not. In 1863, the three of you form Andrews, Clark, and Company. You still keep your commodity trade, but the refinery quickly proves a more profitable arm. The demand for kerosene is growing faster than anyone can supply it. Ships carry barrels across the Atlantic, and your oil burns in the lamps of Europe. Yet the oil business is far from steady. The fields in Pennsylvania are unpredictable. One month the price of crude collapses under a flood of new supply. The next it soars as wells run dry. Competitors rise and vanish in the span of a season. Fortunes are made and lost in the time it takes to drill a well. In these moments of uncertainty, you decide on your path. You will not risk your future on the whims of drilling. You will refine, not mine. Let others gamble on the earth's depths. You will take their crude and turn it into something the world needs every day. You will control the stage of the business where skill, not luck, is king. By 1865, your partnership with Clark has frayed. His caution has become a weight against your vision for expansion. The disagreement reaches its peak when you suggest borrowing heavily to grow the refinery, and he refuses. The partnership is dissolved in an auction for the business. The bidding is tense. The numbers climb, 60,000, 70. At 72,000, Clark hesitates. You add 500 more, and the silence that follows is a sound of victory. The refinery is yours. It is a staggering sum, more than you have ever spent, but the risk feels like certainty in your hands. You now own the largest and most efficient refinery in Cleveland, with Samuel Andrews as your partner. The war is ending, and with it comes the promise of an America hungrier than ever for light, for industry, for oil. In the quiet of your new office, you look over the ledgers. The figures speak to you more clearly than any voice. They tell you that this is only the beginning, that the fortunes you have made so far are nothing compared to what lies ahead, that the path you are on will lead to power beyond measure if you are willing to take it and to hold it, no matter who stands in your way. And in the stillness, you repeat to yourself the words you began in the early mornings years ago. I am bound to be rich. It is the spring of 1866, and the streets of Cleveland are thick with the noise of industry, iron wagons groaning under heavy loads, the hiss of steam from engines bound for the rail yards, the rhythmic thump of barrels being rolled to waiting ships on Lake Erie. You walk those streets with a steady step. You are now the master of your own refinery, and though you still sign your letters in careful script, there is a quiet certainty in your hand. The war is over. The soldiers are coming home. The country is restless, rebuilding, hungering for light in its streets, its homes, its factories, and you are ready to feed that hunger. You open a second refinery, larger, more efficient, and set your eyes on more than the markets of Ohio. Your oil will cross the Atlantic. Your name will move on ships between continents, though no one outside Cleveland yet knows how large you intend to grow. You marry Laura, the quiet, strong-minded woman you have known for years, whose values match your own. She does not crave luxury, but she understands the discipline and ambition that guide you. Your home on Euclid Avenue is modest compared to the grand mansions of other men in your trade. You do not need marble halls to remind yourself of your worth. But in your mind, an empire is already forming. not of castles and gold, but of refineries, railroads, shipping lines. You begin to see the oil business not as a loose collection of rival firms, but as a single organism, one that could be made strong if all its parts were guided by a single mind. For this, you need a partner who thinks as you do. You find him in Henry Flagler. He is older, with sharp eyes and a sharper will. Like you, he sees business as something closer to war. In war, there is no glory in leaving the enemy standing. The two of you talk late into the evening about efficiency, about control, about the waste that comes from too many small players fighting over the same scraps. You both agree. To bring order to the oil industry, the weak must be absorbed or destroyed. It begins with transportation. Oil is nothing without movement, from the wells to the refineries, from the refineries to the cities. The railroads hold the keys. You learn to play them against one another, to offer them steady traffic in exchange for lower rates. You meet with Jay Gould of the Erie Railroad, who offers you a rebate so deep it makes a difference between profit and loss for your competitors. With the New York Central Line, you strike another bargain, fix prices in exchange for a daily flood of oil they cannot get elsewhere. You keep these agreements quiet. To the world, the railroads charge everyone the same. In truth, for every barrel your competitors ship, you pay less, and sometimes you are paid a share their costs as well. This hidden advantage becomes your blade. You begin to cut prices in the open market. Lower, lower still, until your rivals are forced to match you or see their sales vanish. They cannot match you for long. Your costs are less, your margins deeper. One by one, they begin to break. Some sell out to you at a fraction of their worth. Others close their doors. The newspapers do not yet know your name well, but among the men of oil, you are already a presence, the one who is not to be crossed, the one whose patience is long, whose hand is steady on the wheel while others veer in panic. By the early 1870s, you and Flagler decide the time has come to gather everything under one banner. Standard Oil is born, not just as a name, but as an idea. You will make your company the measure by which all others are judged, and you will do it by owning as much of the industry as you can reach. But the market is restless. The price of kerosene falls. Small refiners cling to survival, selling at whatever price will keep the lamps burning in their offices for one more month. The waste is staggering. Too many plants, too much competition, too much oil flooding a market that cannot hold it all. You think often now of your early years, of your mother's way of using every scrap of cloth, every coin, every crumb. To you, the oil industry is no different. Order must be brought to it, or it will collapse under its own chaos. You prepare yourself to take what you need. You will not shout, you will not rush. You will move quietly, steadily, until the work is done. And when it is finished, you will have not just a company, but a machine, one that will run without waste, without rival, without limit. And as you look out over the rail yard from your office window, watching the line of tank cars stretching toward the horizon, you feel it again, that calm certainty from years ago, when you sat in the quiet before the day's work began. I am bound to be rich. It is the winter of 1872. Snow has settled along the tracks that run out to Cleveland, covering the iron rails in a thin frost. Inside your office, the fire burns low, the smell of oil and damp wood mingling in the air. You sit at your desk, reviewing the numbers. They tell you what you already know. Prices are falling again. Kerosene, once the brightest hope of the industrial age, is now cheap enough to buy by the bucket. Too many wells, too many refiners, too much oil flooding the market. You can feel it in your bones. The industry cannot survive like this. Then comes a proposal. The presidents of the Pennsylvania, Erie, and New York Central Railroads invite you into something new, the South Improvement Company. Behind the bland name lies a plan as sharp as any blade. The railroads will double their freight rates for everyone, except a chosen few refiners. Those few, yourself included, will pay half the official rate. And more. For every barrel shipped by a competitor, you will receive a rebate, a secret payment taken from their cost and given directly to you. You see it for what it is, a weapon, quiet and lethal. Your rivals will bleed from every shipment. Their profits will vanish into your pocket. But secrets are restless things. Word leaks to the oil fields, and the reaction is swift. Face. Miners strike. Producers refuse to sell to you. Crowds gather in the streets, shouting your name with anger. They block shipments, spill oil into the date, tear up sections of track in defiance. The plan collapses within 2 months. The South Improvement Company dissolved under the weight of public fury. For others, it is humiliation. For you, it is merely an interruption. If you cannot bring the industry to heel in the shadows, you will do it in the open. You begin in Cleveland, targeting the city's 26 refineries. You move with quiet confidence, speaking first to the strongest, knowing that once they fall, the rest will follow. You show them your books, the strength of Standard Oil's position. You speak plainly about what lies ahead, the inevitability of failure if they stand alone. One by one, they sell. 22 out of 26 in just 6 weeks. It will come to be known as a Cleveland massacre, though there is no blood, only signatures on paper, the quiet closing of gates, the slow fading of smoke from chimneys that will burn no more. Some of the men you buy out join you, bringing their knowledge, their skill, their workers into the fold. Others take your payment and leave the industry forever, bound by contract that keep them from ever returning. By the summer of that year, Standard Oil refines nearly all the kerosene that leaves Cleveland. But you are not satisfied. The panic you have seen in these men's eyes tells you there is still more to take, and not just here, but across the country. Then, in 1873, the markets turn. Banks fail. Railroads stumble. Factories close. The price of oil falls to less than the cost of water. For most, it is a disaster. For you, it is an opening. You are ready. Your debts are low, your credit strong. While others struggle to keep their doors open, you buy in Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, New York. You take refineries at fractions of their worth, folding them into the growing body of Standard Oil. When a rival refuses to sell, you find other ways. You buy up all the barrels they need to ship their product. You reserve the rail lines months in advance so that oil has nowhere to go. You speak to the railroads, suggesting rates just high enough to push them to the edge of ruin. And then you arrive, offering to buy what is left before the bank takes it. Piece by piece, city by city, you extend your reach. You build pipelines, your own veins across the land, moving oil without the railroads, making them serve you on your terms. And soon, the country begins to speak of Standard Oil as they might of some great creature, sprawling, unyielding, its lines running like tentacles from field to city, from well to lamp. They call it the octopus. In the quiet of evening, you return home to Euclid Avenue, to Laura and the children. To them, you are not the octopus. You are simply father, the man who insists they keep their own accounts, who expect them to work for their allowances, who bows his head in prayer at the dinner table. The papers call you ruthless. Your competitors call you worse. But in your own mind, you are the one bringing order to a chaotic industry, the one saving it from collapse. You are the steady hand, the careful mind, the builder of something that will last. And as the lamps in your study flicker with the warm glow of kerosene, your kerosene, you allow yourself a moment to imagine the years ahead. You are not done, not even close. It is the mid-1870s, and the railroads, once your allies, are beginning to shift uneasily under your weight. They have carried your oil across the country, to ports, to cities, to distant markets. But now, you have laid your own pipelines, steel arteries threading through fields and towns, carrying crude straight to your refineries without a single wheel turning on their tracks. The Pennsylvania Railroad, led by Tom Scott, has been watching. Scott is a man who has built his fortune in steel and steam, who knows the smell of competition when it's neigh. He sees your pipelines not as progress, but as a threat, one that will lead into his most valuable traffic. Then Scott makes his move. He begins building his own pipelines. And more, he starts refining oil himself. You understand what this means immediately. This is not business as usual. This is war. You move first. You cut off all Standard Oil traffic to the Pennsylvania Railroad, shifting it to other lines. The flow of your oil, steady, heavy, constant, vanishes from Scott's books overnight. You lower the price of your kerosene, forcing the market downward. Other refiners, tied to the Pennsylvania's tracks, have to follow. Their profits thin, then vanish. The Pennsylvania's freight volumes shrink, the sound of hammers and whistles in their yards growing faint. But you do not stop there. You meet with the New York Central and the Erie railroads, persuading them to lower rates for everyone, just enough to make the Pennsylvania bleed even faster. The results are swift and brutal. Scott is forced to lay off workers, hundreds of them. Wages are cut. The ripple of discontent spreads through the ranks, and soon the strike begins, one of the largest the country has ever seen. In the summer heat of 1877, whole cities become battlegrounds. In Pittsburgh, the air is thick with smoke, not from locomotives, but from burning freight cars. Protesters clash with armed guards. Shots are fired. Dozens die. Across the state, rails are torn from the earth, locomotives toppled, depots reduced to ash. You did not light this fire yourself, but your moves helped set the tinder. Even you cannot watch without a trace of unease as the news spreads. The images of chaos, the losses in steel and iron, the ruin left along the tracks. When the strike ends, the Pennsylvania Railroad is diminished. Scott, once untouchable, is now willing to meet on your terms. You offer him a way out. Standard Oil will send nearly half its traffic back to his lines if he gives you deep, secret rebates and detailed records of every competitor's shipments. The deal is struck. The Pennsylvania is spared outright collapse, but it comes at the cost of bending to you. And with that agreement, you complete something you had not yet achieved. Not just dominance over the oil industry, but influence over the railroads themselves. The newspapers take note. They no longer speak of you merely as a powerful businessman. Now they write of you as a force, an influence stretching from the oil fields of Pennsylvania to the docks of New York, from the refineries of Cleveland to the steel bridges spanning the Mississippi. Among your peers, there's admiration, but also a growing fear. Men who once competed with you now speak more softly in your presence, calculating what it would cost them if you turned your gaze their way. Yet at home, on Euclid Avenue, you move through quieter rooms. Laura tends to the children. The music of their practice, piano, violin, drifts through the hallways. You teach them to keep accounts, to save, to know the worth of their work. You remain faithful to the church, sitting in your pew on Sundays, leading hymns when asked. But outside those walls, the image of you is shifting. The public has begun to call Standard Oil the octopus, a name born of suspicion, of the idea that your reach is too great, your grasp too tight. You do not deny your ambition. You have seen what chaos looks like, too many small refineries chasing the same market, driving prices to ruin. In your mind, you are not destroying the oil industry. You are saving it, shaping it into something stronger, something lasting. Still, you know this much. The more power you hold, the more enemies you will make, and they are already watching you. In the evening, when the lamps are lit in the city outside, your window hums in the dark, you let the thought settle. You have no intention of slowing down. The road ahead is longer still. It is the late 1870s, and the air in your Cleveland office carries a scent of warm ink, oil-soaked wood, and the faint metallic tang from the refineries along the lake. Outside, the streets are busy with the sound of cartwheels and boots striking the cobblestones. But here, in the quiet, you are charting something far larger than this city. Standard Oil now holds Cleveland in its hands. The refineries that remain outside your company are few, small, and harmless. Your gaze has lifted beyond Ohio, beyond even Pennsylvania. You look east, to New York, where the walls groan under the weight of barrels bound for Europe. You look south, to Philadelphia's busy docks, where steamships wait to carry kerosene to far-off ports. You look west, to Chicago and St. Louis, where new rail lines promise fresh markets. In your mind, you see not just cities, but connections, lines of steel and water and barrel wood. You see how they can be bent to your advantage, how every link in the chain can be made to save the whole. The years of the Depression have not been kind to others, but they have been generous to you. The failures of weaker refiners have left openings in every major city. You move quietly at first, sending envoys, making offers. Some resist, most accept. Each sale, each signed agreement, becomes another thread in the web. You are careful not to move faster than your systems can handle. Every new refinery is evaluated, its machinery inspected, its efficiency measured against your standards. If it is outdated, it is closed. If it is sound, it is improved. Waste is stripped away. Beyond the refineries themselves, you turn your attention to the supplies that feed them. You take stakes in barrel factories, in chemical works that produce sulfuric acid, in rope and metal shops that supply fittings for your pipelines. You begin to build your own tank cars for the railroads, your own ships for the waterways. Every step draws more of the industry into your grasp. Not just the oil itself, but the means to move it, store it, refine it, and sell it. Your competitors feel it even when they do not see you. Prices they cannot match. Deliveries they cannot secure. Customers they cannot keep. But for all your success, there's unease among the railroads. They have been essential to your eyes, but your pipelines are growing longer, reaching into the heart of the oil regions. Each new length of pipe takes business away from their tracks. The New York Central and the Erie tolerate it, for now, but you know they watch closely. The public, too, is watching. The newspapers still speak of the octopus, though the name does not trouble you. In your own mind, you are not strangling the industry, you are bringing it under a single, steady hand. In place of chaos, you offer stability. In place of waste, efficiency. Still, there are days when the scale of it all is clear even to you. You receive reports from Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, New York, Chicago, St. Louis, pages upon pages of figures, each a fragment of the machine you have built. You see how a decision made in your Cleveland office can ripple outward to the docks of Antwerp or the streets of Buenos Aires. At home, the changes are quieter. Your children grow, their studies shaping them into disciplined, careful young people. Laura remains your anchor, her judgment steady, her faith strong. The life you lead outside your office is not one of public display, but of order, routine, and purpose. But in the marketplace, your presence is no longer quiet. The scope of Standard Oil is now too vast to be unseen. Rivals speak of you in hushed tones, some with admiration, many with resentment. And though you have reached further than you once imagined possible, you are not yet satisfied. The oil industry is still fractured beyond America's borders. There are new lands, new markets, and new levers of control to be discovered. As the year closes, you stand at your office window, watching the lights of Cleveland flicker in the night. Somewhere, hundreds of miles away, another shipment of your kerosene is being unloaded at a foreign port. Another contract is being signed in your favor. Another refinery is taking its first steps under your command. The reach is widening, and in your mind, there is no end to it yet. It is the early 1880s. The winter wind off Lake Erie rattles the windows of your Cleveland office, carrying with it the scent of coal smoke from rail yards. The ledgers on your desk are heavier now, not just in weight, but in scope. The figures no longer speak only of Cleveland or Pennsylvania. They speak of the world. Standard Oil is no longer an American company in the simple sense. It has become something larger, a presence that moves quietly through harbors and warehouses on the other side of the ocean. Your kerosene burns in the lamps of London, Paris, and Berlin, in the narrow streets of small European towns, in the drawing rooms of the wealthy and the kitchens of the poor. Your oil gives light. The barrels that leave your refineries cross seas and continents, and when they arrive, they bear your name. You know that to secure these markets, you must do more than ship oil. You must be present at the source, not of crude, but of customers. In Antwerp, in Hamburg, in Liverpool, you open offices, hire agents, secure storage tanks. Your men learn the local languages, the habits of the markets, the ways to ease your product into homes and factories. In Asia, the journey is longer, slower, but no less certain. Your kerosene arrives in Japan, in China, in the far corners of the Russian Empire. You picture the glow of those lamps against walls you have never seen, in places you will never visit. Each new market presents its own challenges, tariffs, shipping delays, rivals both foreign and domestic. But your strategy does not change. You lower prices until competitors weaken, then offer to buy them out. You secure exclusive shipping agreements, ensuring that even if others can produce oil, they cannot move it with the same speed or reliability. Your control over supply lines becomes your greatest advantage. From the forests that give you barrel staves to the factories that forge your tank fittings, you ensure that the lifeblood of your industry flows through your own channels. At home, the numbers are staggering. By the mid-1880s, Standard Oil refines more than 90% of the kerosene in the United States. But what pleases you most is the steadiness of it, the absence of the violent price swings that once plagued the industry. The stability you envisioned in your earliest days is now a reality. And yet, there's resistance. In Russia, the Nobel brothers, innovators in oil, control their own fields and refineries, and they are not so easily pressed. In the Dutch East Indies, local refiners, backed by colonial powers, guard their markets with tariffs and exclusive charters. You watch these rivals with interest, not anger. You understand that the shape of the oil world is still forming, and that your place in it will be secured not in a single year, but over decades. In the evenings, as you sit by the fire in your Euclid Avenue home, you think about the distance your oil travels. From the dark, heavy crude drawn from the hills of Pennsylvania to the clean flame in a lamp thousands of miles away, it is a journey of rail and ship, of barrels and ledgers, of deals made in quiet offices. The newspapers at home continue their criticism. They call you a monopolist, a destroyer of fair competition. They speak of the octopus wrapping its arms around the globe. You do not answer them publicly. You let your work speak. And in the silence of those winter nights, you imagine the decades ahead. The world will grow. Cities will rise. Industry will demand more light, more fuel, more movement. And Standard Oil will be there, quietly supplying it all. You close your eyes and see it, not as conquest, but as completion, an unbroken chain from the well to the flame, with every link strong and secure, every part serving the whole. It is the mid-1880s, and the summer air in Cleveland is thick and still. Inside your office, the light falls gently across the polished wood of your desk, illuminating stacks of reports, shipments, refinery outputs, market prices. On the surface, all is well. Standard Oil stands unmatched, its reach stretching across the nation and far beyond. But there's a new sound in the air, faint but persistent. It is not the roar of furnaces or the whistle of locomotives. It is a low murmur of dissatisfaction, the rustle of papers, the sharp tone of political voices beginning to turn toward you. 4 years, your growth was a quiet work of contracts, bargains, and careful planning. But the size of your enterprise can no longer be hidden. People see it now in the empty chimneys of closed refineries, in the prices that towns must pay for oil, in the way railroads bend their rates to favor your shipments. Some speak with admiration, calling you a master of organization, a man who brought order to a chaotic industry. Others call you a monopolist, a manipulator who squeezes out competition until nothing remains but your own company. In state legislatures, debates begin to stay. In Washington, congressmen talk about trusts, a new word for a new kind of power, one that crosses state lines and answers to no single authority. And always, when the discussion turns to oil, your name is there. You listen, but you do not rush to respond. Public opinion is like the wind. It shifts, it changes. You have learned that patience often outlasts outrage. Yet you also understand that this is not the idle talk of taverns or newspapers. This is the beginning of something larger. Inside your own walls, you make adjustments. You move certain assets into the hands of friendly intermediaries, placing distance between yourself and the operations most visible to critics. You strengthen your legal teams, ensuring every contract, every agreement, is sound. But the critics are clever, and they are persistent. Ida Tarbell, the daughter of an oilman driven out by your expansion years ago, begins her research. She is quiet now, but you can sense a determination in her kind. You know she will not rest until she has traced every thread of your empire. At the same time, new rivals emerge in the West and South, smaller and hungrier, working the edges of your reach. They are too small to harm you now, but you remember how quickly small ventures can grow when left unchecked. You do not intend to make that mistake. In the evenings, you walk through your gardens on Euclid Avenue. The air smells of summer flowers and freshly cut grass. Here, the noise of politics feels distant, almost unreal. Laura speaks of church matters, of the children's studies, of friends and neighbors. But when you return to your study, when you sit before the map on your wall, the one marked with pins for every refinery, every pipeline, every port, you feel it. The world beyond those pins is changing. For now, your control is intact. Your shipments leave on time. Your pipelines flow without interruption. Your markets remain steady. But you have seen enough in life to know that power, once visible, attracts not only admiration, but challenge. And in the quiet of your mind, you prepare for it, not with fear, but with the same steady resolve that has guided you since the beginning. You have faced competition before. You have outlasted panic and crisis. This will be no different, only louder. Somewhere beyond the walls of your home, the storm is gathering. You can feel the first stirrings of its wind. It is the year 1888. The air in Washington feels heavy, not just with summer heat, but with a sense of purpose among the men in its marble halls. Your name has traveled here ahead of you, carried in newspaper columns, whispered in committee rooms, spoken aloud in debates on the floor. The talk of trust has now taken on a sharper edge. Standard Oil has become the example, the name used to explain to the public why such vast concentrations of power should be watched, perhaps even broken apart. You have been here before, in smaller ways, state investigations, legal skirmishes, questions about rebates and contracts. But this is different. The movement is not confined to one region, nor to one political faction. Farmers' groups in the West complain that railroads, tied too closely to companies like yours, charge them more to move their crops. Merchants in the South write to their representatives about prices they cannot match. Independent refiners in Pennsylvania send petitions, filled with signatures, to demand action. The Senate formed committees. Subpoenas are issued. Testimony is called for. You are careful in how you respond. You do not appear in person if you can avoid it, sending trusted lieutenants instead, men who know your policies, who can answer without anger, without hesitation. At home in Cleveland, the papers arrive daily with fresh headlines. Some praise your efficiency, your ability to stabilize prices and prevent the wild swings of the old days. Others accuse you of strangling the life out of honest competition, of crushing the livelihoods of men who stood in your way. You read them in the quiet of your study, setting each aside without comment. You have long understood that the work of building is rarely praised by those it displaces. Still, you make preparations. The trust structure that holds Standard Oil together is examined, and you see the need for adjustments. Assets are shifted between states, legal protections reinforced. The men who manage your refineries and pipelines are instructed to keep operations smooth, prices stable, and supplies uninterrupted. Any disruption now would give your critics the proof they seek. In private, you speak to Henry Flagler and your closest advisors about the shape of things to come. You do not speak in terms of fear, but of readiness. Every industry changes. Every power is tested. This, you tell them, is simply another test. Meanwhile, in the oil regions, a different kind of resistance is forming. Independent refiners and producers, though smaller, begin to cooperate. They pool resources to build their own pipelines, their own shipping agreements. They hope that together they can survive where alone they would fail. You watch these moves with interest. Cooperation among the small players is rare and rarely lasting. You suspect that before long, some will come to you quietly, asking for terms. And when they do, you will be ready. The storm is not yet at full strength. The inquiries have not yet become laws. The speeches have not yet turned into action. But the air is charged. You can feel the current running through the country, a readiness for change that could either pass like a summer thunderstorm or break into something far greater. In the evenings, you walk the quiet halls of your home, the gas lamps casting a warm glow across the polished floors. Outside, Cleveland hums with the sounds of a growing city. Trains in the distance, the clatter of carriage wheels, the laughter of neighbors on their porches. But beyond the city, beyond Ohio, beyond even the borders of the nation, your company's reach continues. Ships leave New York Harbor heavy with barrels bound for Europe and Asia. Pipelines hum with a steady flow of crude. Refineries burn through the night. For now, the machine you built runs without pause. But you know the days ahead will not be like the days behind. The questions being asked in Washington will not be easily set aside. And so, in the quiet of your study, you prepare yourself. The first battles are here. The greater ones are yet to come. It is 1890, and the summer heat in Washington feels heavier than usual, the air thick with anticipation. The Capitol's marble halls echo with footsteps and murmurs. Your name has moved beyond boardrooms and industry circles. Now it is spoken in courtrooms, on the front pages of newspapers, and in the homes of families who have never seen a drop of crude oil in their lives. The word trust has hardened into something sharper, monopoly. It is no longer an abstract concept debated in quiet chambers. It is the thing your critics hold up when they speak of danger to the public good. They speak of Standard Oil as if it were a nation unto itself, immune to law, answerable only to you. That year, Congress passes the Sherman Antitrust Act. Its language is broad, its reach uncertain, but its intent is unmistakable, to break apart concentrations of power deemed harmful to fair trade. You read the text in your Cleveland study, the paper cool under your fingers. It is not aimed at you by name, but you feel the shape of its shadow falling directly across your path. The press feeds a public hunger for stories. They speak of the octopus, its arms wrapped around every refinery, every rail line, every port. They tell of small refiners driven out, of towns where only your kerosene is sold, of rivals forced to accept your terms or close their doors. Ida Tarbell's work is still in its early form, but she is patient, collecting every scrap of evidence, every account from those who have crossed paths with Standard Oil. You can sense a persistence even before her full story is told. The investigations multiply. State attorneys general in Ohio and New York begin their own inquiries. You are summoned to testify, not always in person, but your voice is carried in the words of your deputies, in letters read aloud under oath. The questions come in many forms. About your rebates from the railroads, about the agreements that set prices below cost until competitors faltered, about the pipelines that carry only your crude. Each question carries with it an implication that your success could not have come without harm to others. In public, you remain silent, offering no speeches, no defenses. Your policy has always been to let your work speak for itself. But you know that in this climate, silence can be filled with whatever your critics choose. Privately, you continue to strengthen the company's structure. The trust is formalized into a corporation, its pieces spread across multiple states, each shielded by its own legal protections. You make sure that no single blow, no single law, can undo the whole. Yet there is a change in the air. In the early days, when your reach was still unseen, you could act quietly, and by the time others noticed, the matter was settled. Now, every move is watched. Every expansion, every contract, is examined for signs of overreach. The public's view of you is divided. Some see a man who brought light to the world, whose kerosene burns in the poorest homes and the grandest cities alike. Others see a man who hoarded power, who bent every advantage toward himself, who left little room for any but his own. At home, life remains calm. Laura continues her charitable work. You spend more time with the children, who are now grown and moving into their own lives. You teach them, as you always have, the value of discipline, of service, of giving back. Your faith remains central, the hymns on Sunday mornings, the quiet prayers before meals. But the world outside is noisier now. The press does not tire. The legislators do not forget. And the law, once distant, now stand close enough to reach out its hand. The trial has begun, not in a single courtroom, but in the court of public opinion. And though you have faced challenges before, you know this one is different. This is not a battle for a market or a contract. This is a battle for the very right to exist, as you have built yourself to be. In the evenings, when the lamps are lit and the city hums beyond your window, you look over the maps of your empire, the refineries, the pipelines, the shipping routes stretching across oceans. You know their value, you know their purpose, and you know that, whatever the verdict, you will not let them fall without a fight. It is the turn of the century, and the air in America feels restless. Cities are growing taller, railroads are stretching further, and the press, now bolder than ever, is hungry for stories that will hold the public's gaze. Ida Tarbell has been at her desk for years now, gathering the threads of your life's work. She speaks to former employees, to rivals who have long since lost their refineries, to railroad men who once signed agreements in dimly lit offices. Each conversation adds to her portrait of Standard Oil, not as you see it, but as those on the outside have felt it. When her serialized articles begin to appear in McClure's magazine, they spread like a tide. The stories are not written with anger, but with a calm, methodical voice, the kind that lingers in a reader's mind. She writes of the South Improvement Company, of secret rebates, of prices cut so low they left competitors gasping for air. She names the men who bent under the weight of your offers, who sold to you because there was no other way forward. For the public, it is a revelation. For you, it is not news. Every step she describes is one you have taken with purpose. But you know the power of such words, the way a simple account, stripped of the complexities you have long understood, can take on a moral weight in the eyes of the reader. In Cleveland, the papers reprint her work. Neighbors who once nodded politely in the street now glance longer, their expressions unreadable. Church friends speak of the series in low voices after services. Some still defend you, pointing to the steady prices, the safety of your kerosene, the jobs you have provided. Others are quiet, unsure what to believe. Within the company, there is no panic. The machine runs as it always has. The refineries hum. The tank cars move along the rails. The ships leave the docks. But among your executives, there's unease. They know that the more the public sees, the more fertile the ground becomes for lawmakers who wish to act. You choose not to answer Tarbell directly. To engage would be to grant her the fight she seeks. Instead, you continue your work, your letters to managers carrying the same quiet instructions. Keep the product pure, the prices fair, the delivery certain. And yet, in the privacy of your study, you feel the change. For decades, your greatest advantage was the space between what you did and what others understood about it. Now, that space is shrinking. Deals once made in silence are now described in print for millions to read. The public appetite for these revelations is endless. They want more than facts. They want a story, a hero and a villain, a rise and, perhaps, a fall. And without your voice in the telling, they will shape it for themselves. Still, the discipline that carried you from your earliest days remains. You remind yourself that storms pass, that public outrage often burns hotter than it lasts. You focus on what you can control, the efficiency of your operations, the loyalty of your partners, the strength of your legal defenses. Outside your window, Cleveland goes about its business. The carriages rattle over the cobblestones, shopkeepers sweep their stoops, the lake glimmers in the afternoon light. Life, for most, goes on unchanged, but you know the current beneath it is moving faster now. In the evenings, you sit by the fire with Laura. She reads, the quiet turning of pages a familiar sound. You think of the years ahead, of the possibility that the world you have shaped so carefully might soon be forced to change its form. Tarbell's pen has done what few rivals could. It has placed you, not your company alone, but you, the man, under the nation's gaze. And as the last coals in the fireplace dim to red, you understand that the next battles will not be fought only in markets or courts, but in the minds of the people themselves. It is 1906, and the corridors of Washington hum with purpose. For years, the investigations have come and gone, the speeches have risen and faded, the headlines have flared and cooled. But now, the government's attention is fixed, not in passing, but with intent. The U.S. Attorney General files suit against Standard Oil under the Sherman Antitrust Act. The words are plain, but their weight is immense. The government seeks to dissolve the company you have built, to unbind the threads you have woven over decades. The charge is not that you have broken the law in a single act, but that the very structure of your empire is an offense, a combination that restrains trade, that smothers competition before it can grow, that bends a market to its own will. In Cleveland, the news arrives on a cold morning. The papers are thick with details, pages describing the reach of Standard Oil, the refineries, the pipelines, the foreign offices, the shipping fleets. To the reader, it is a picture of something too vast to be tamed. To you, it is simply a record of the work you have done. Your advisors gather. Maps are unrolled across long tables, dotted with pins marking every branch of the company. Lawyers outline the path ahead, years of hearings, testimony, and appeals. They speak in the language of procedure, but beneath it, you hear the same truth. This will be the greatest fight you have faced. The government's case is methodical. They present evidence of rebates, of price wars, of agreements that gave you exclusive control over shipping routes. They tell the court of small refiners bought out after years of pressure, of competitors unable to move their oil because the railroads, bound to your contracts, refused them. You know these tactics well. They were never acts of spite, but of strategy. In a chaotic industry, you brought order. In a market prone to wild swings, you offered stability. To you, these were necessities. To them, they are proof of domination. The hearings stretch on. Executives testify, their words dissected in the press. Diagrams of your pipelines and shipping routes appear in magazines, their lines drawn like the arms of that old name they gave you, the octopus. Outside the courtrooms, the world moves forward. Automobiles are becoming more common on city streets. Electricity is spreading into homes, a rival to the kerosene lamp. The industry itself is changing, but the government's case looks backward as much as it looks ahead, measuring your past actions against their vision of a fair market. At home, you feel the weight of the years. You are no longer the young man who once walked the oil field with samples in his hand. Your days are quieter now, your energy more measured. Yet in the privacy of your study, you follow each development closely, reading reports late into the night. Laura reminds you that your work has never been only for yourself. The hospitals, the schools, The charities, they are as much a part of your legacy as the pipelines and refineries. You nod, knowing she is right, but the company is more than business to you. It is a living shape of decades of discipline, of decisions made with care, of ambition fulfilled. The case wins its way upward, toward the Supreme Court. You know that whatever the verdict, the decision will not come quickly. But the tone in the air is different now. For the first time, the possibility exists that Standard Oil, as you have built it, may not survive in its present form. Still, you do not flinch. You remind yourself that every challenge you have faced, from the price collapses of the early days to the rail strikes, from the Cleveland massacre to the outcry over the South Improvement Company, has been met and overcome. The law will speak, and when it does, you will decide how to answer. It is 1911, and the spring air in Cleveland carries a softness that belies the weight of what is to come. The Supreme Court has spoken. After years of hearings, of evidence laid out in heavy volumes, of arguments carried back and forth across the marble chambers of Washington, the decision is final. Standard Oil must be dissolved. The words are direct, stripped of sentiment. The court finds that the company you built violates the Sherman Antitrust Act. They see in its structure a conspiracy to restrain trade, to hold too much of the nation's industry in a single hand. The remedy they order is simple in theory, immense in execution. Standard Oil is to be broken into separate companies, each free from control of the others. You read the opinion in the quiet of your study, the paper cool and crisp between your fingers. There is no surprise in it. You have long felt the wind shifting in this direction, but there is a finality in the language that settles deep. For decades, you have kept the oil world under a single roof, each part linked to the others, each piece serving the whole. Now, the roof will be lifted, the rooms divided, the connection severed. Your advisors arrive in twos and threes, their faces tight with concentration. The plan will be complex. Assets must be divided, pipelines, refineries, shipping fleets, storage facilities. Stocks will be distributed among shareholders, creating a constellation of new companies. Standard Oil of New Jersey, Standard Oil of New York, Standard Oil of California, and more. The press is jubilant. Headlines speak of a victory for the public, of the end of monopoly power. In editorials, they call the decision historic, a turning point in the relationship between business and government. But in the markets, something unexpected happens. Shares of the newly formed companies rise. Investors, no longer bound to the shadow of a single entity, see opportunity in the pieces. The value of what you once held together begins to grow apart. You watch it with the calm of a man who understands a deeper truth. The name Standard Oil may be gone in law, but the reach of its offspring will remain. The companies that bear those new names still hold the wells, the refineries, the shipping lanes. They are still run by the men you chose, still shaped by the systems you designed. At home, life changes little. You walk your gardens, the paths lined with blooming flowers. You read by the fire in the evenings, the rustle of the newspaper as familiar as the tick of the clock on the mantel. Laura speaks of her charitable projects, of hospitals and schools, of the good that can still be done. And in the quiet of your own mind, you reflect on the arc of it all. From the small deals in Cleveland to the vast network that once stretched across oceans, from the first barrels you shipped to the final judgment handed down by the court, it has been a lifetime of building, of bending chaos into order. The public may see this as an end. You know it is only a change in form. The oil still flows. The lamps still burn. The work, in its essence, goes on. In the stillness of the evening, you close the folder that holds a court's decision. Outside, the last light of day fades into the calm of night, and you feel, as you always have, that the future will find its own way forward, shaped in ways both seen and unseen by what you have built. It is the years after 1911, and the pace of your life has shifted. The corridors of Cleveland's offices no longer echo with your daily steps. The long table stacked with contracts, the steady hum of clocks and telegraphs, the maps marked with pins, these now belong to others. Your mornings begin more quietly. Sunlight filters through the curtains, and the sound of birdsong drifts in from the garden. You rise without the urgency of meetings or decisions waiting in the next room. Instead, your attention turns to letters from universities, hospitals, and churches, each one seeking your support. Philanthropy is no longer a side current in your life. It is the main channel. You have seen the power of disciplined organization in business, and now you bring that same order to giving. The Rockefeller Foundation takes form, guided by the belief that wealth should be used for the public good, not simply left to rest in vaults. You fund medical research, sending resources to fight diseases that have plagued humanity for centuries. You give to education, believing that opportunity begins with the mind. You help build the University of Chicago into an institution that will stand for generations. The newspapers, once filled with sharp words about Standard Oil, now speak of your gifts. Some praise them openly. Others write with a kind of measured skepticism, wondering if charity can ever soften the image of power. You do not answer their doubts. Your purpose is not to change their view of you, but to see the work done. Life at home has a steadiness now. Laura's presence is constant, her counsel still as clear as when you first built your life together. The children are grown, their own paths unfolding, yet they remain close. Family dinners are filled with quiet laughter, the soft clink of silverware, the warmth of shared stories. You spend more time outdoors. At your estate in Pocantico Hills, the rolling land stretches under wide skies. You walk the paths in the early mornings, the grass damp with dew, the air carrying the scent of pine and earth. These walks are slower than the hurried steps of your youth, yet each one feels fuller, more deliberate. From time to time, visitors arrive, old associates from the oil days, scholars from universities you have funded, ministers from churches you have supported. The conversations are unhurried, touched with reflection. You speak less of markets and more of lasting impact. Yet you remain a man of order. Even in these years, you keep accounts, tracking every dollar given and every purpose it serves. Waste, whether in business or in giving, still troubles you. You believe that wealth, handled carelessly, is no blessing at all. There are moments when you look back, to the streets of Cleveland in your youth, to the scent of fresh barrels in the first refinery, to the long negotiations with railroad men, to the battles in courtrooms and the pages of newspapers. The arc is long, yet each stage feels like the natural step to the next. The world around you is changing. The automobile, once a curiosity, is now reshaping the streets. Electricity hums in more and more homes, pushing the kerosene lamp toward memory. Airplanes, fragile but determined, lift from grassy fields into open skies. You watch these changes without regret. The future belongs to those willing to adapt, and you have done your part to bring it here. In the evenings, as the lamps are lit, electric now, their glow steady and clear, you sit with Laura by the fire. Outside, the stars emerge over the quiet hills. Inside, the house holds a deep stillness, the kind that comes not from idleness, but from a life fully lived. You no longer carry the weight of an empire on your shoulders, yet in a way, it is still with you. The companies born from Standard Oil continue their work. The pipelines still hum. The ships still cross oceans. The structure may have changed, but the foundation remains. And as the night deepens, you feel the same truth you have always known, that the worth of a life is measured not only in what is built, but in what endures. The years have grown long now, and the days pass with a gentleness that once seemed unimaginable. The pace of your life is no longer set by contracts, shipments, or markets. It is set instead by the rising of the sun over Pocantico Hills, the rustle of wind through the trees, the slow turning of seasons. Your mornings begin with the first light spilling across the lawns. You rise early, not from habit alone, but from a quiet eagerness to see the day begin. The gardens you walk now are not the measured piles of business trips or hurried meetings, but open spaces alive with birdsong and the scent of earth after rain. You feel the years in your body, the slower steps, the shorter walks, but you do not resent them. The energy that once drove you through the oil fields, the boardrooms, and the courtrooms is now turned inward, toward reflection. You have the time to think without urgency, to remember without regret. Letters still arrive from universities, hospitals, and scholars around the world. They tell of lives changed by the work your foundations have funded, a student who now teaches, a researcher who has found a breakthrough, a doctor who has saved lives with knowledge once out of reach. You read these words with quiet satisfaction, knowing that the arc of your life's work extends far beyond your own hands. The world outside has shifted in ways that would have been difficult to imagine in your youth. Automobiles hum along roads once quiet with hoofbeats. Ships cross oceans in record time. The airplane, that fragile invention you once regarded with curiosity, now carries passengers into the clouds. And deep beneath the ground, oil still flows, drawn up to fuel this new century. You no longer speak in public, no longer appear in the pages of the newspapers except as a figure from another era. To the young, you are a name from the past, one spoken alongside the story of Standard Oil, the trust, the breakup, and the long years of giving that followed. In the evenings, as the light fades, you sit by the window with Laura. The hills are dark silhouettes against the fading sky. The air is still. You speak little. After so many years, words are less necessary. The comfort is in presence, in the shared silence, in knowing the road you have walked together. Sometimes you think of the boy you once were, the one who counted every penny, who learned the value of discipline before he knew the shape of the world. You think of the man who saw in the chaos of the oil trade a pattern waiting to be drawn into order. You think of the storms weathered, the accusations faced, the victories and the changes forced upon you. And you see it all as one continuous thread, winding its way here. Your legacy now belongs to time. The companies born from Standard Oil will go on in their own way, reshaped by the decades to come. The foundations you have built will continue to work long after your own hands are still. The world will judge in its own measure, as it always has. And yet, as night settles over the quiet hills, you feel no need to defend or explain. You have lived the life you chose, met the challenges you faced, and left behind the structures and works you believed in. The lamps are lit inside the house, their glow warm against the gathering dark. Somewhere far away, ships cross the ocean under a canopy of stars. In another part of the world, a student bends over a book in a library your gifts help build. In another, a patient recovers in a hospital your charity helped to open. The world moves on. And here, in the stillness of the night, you rest, not in the clamor of business, but in the quiet satisfaction of a life's work completed.